Hi everyone, thank you for joining me on another Altenew Educators video hop. This one is called Hue and You, and you can see the hues that I chose for this project. I started out with a top folding A2 size card. I wanted to add a little shine, so there's going to be a panel of gold on the front face of the card. And this cardstock here is A2 size as well, but it's going to be trimmed as we go on with the project. And that is actually from the Spellbinders Better Press System paper. So hint, hint, that's what I'll be using. But also I'll be using the Flowers in a Flamingo set from the June release. I'm going to be using one of the leaves from that set. These are so versatile. There are so many things you can do with that particular set. It's so big and I love it. I love the leaves, and I thought they were going to be a really good offset for the, what is this one here? This is the Modern Leaf background. We're going to be using the simple stencil as well as the coordinating press plate for the Modern Leaf background. So a little late summer inspiration is where I got my colors from and my leaves idea. And also this was one of my first attempts at using the Better Press, so I really liked it. It was really fun. We're going to add the black onyx gem sparkles, the iridescent ink spray. Also going to be bringing in Sunshine Greetings press plate and die set. So I am picking out my sentiment there, which says sending good vibes, and the coordinating die to cut that out. I like to have all my pieces and tools prepared as I start a project. These are the inks we'll be using. 3 for the blues, 2 for the yellows. Why did I pick blue and yellow? Well, they're kind of a yellowy orange, so they are complementary colors of each other on the color wheel, which I love utilizing. And I'm going to start with the 2 darker of the 2 colors, Teal Tempest and Amber Blaze. I brought in my hand crank machine with my Better Press plate. And here's my little trick. I put the plate down first, put the paper onto the top plate. Well, it's not really a trick, I guess, but I guess that's probably how you're supposed to use it. But anyways, like I said, this is one of my first attempts at using the Better Press, so I consider it a quick little trick. Anyways, I'm taping the paper to the underside of that carrier plate. And starting with the darkest blue, I'm going to put the ink right onto the plate. I'm just doing it at the corners opposite each other. That's how we're going to get this gradient effect that you saw in the finished card. I love this color. I love this blue. Blue is not my favorite color, but this one is just, it's so deep and rich. I love it. And here we go, adding the top plate with the paper. And again, like I said, I did use a panel of the paper that came with the Better Press system. And my machine's really old. I don't think they make it anymore. And so I did have to use both shims that come with the Better Press as well to get good pressing coverage onto that plate. But I did try this with other scraps of cardstock, the Nina 110 pound, Nina 80 pound watercolor paper. I just love it. This actually is a really fun thing to use. So now this is how we get the kind of like an ombre look. Wiping off the teal, and now I'm going to take the orange and put that right through the middle. And these colors are going to overlap each other, which gives us a nice green tone to some of the leaves, which is, of course, perfect for leaves. Kind of a midsummer warm look. And it works really great. I mean, I don't even have, even with those shims, I didn't have to put a lot of extra pressure onto this, onto the Better Press system. It just goes right through smoothly through the hand crank machine. And yeah, one pass in and out, and that's it. Here comes the big reveal. I love the reveal, right? Don't we love the reveal? There we go. So there is our blended, super easy blended pressed leaves on our background piece there. And you see where that tape is? That yellow tape comes with the Better Press, and don't worry where the tape was on that finished piece, because we are going to be trimming it down, so that's why I didn't pre-trim it. Now I've got some scraps of Neenah 110 pound cardstock, and that's what I'm going to use to make my sentiment out of. I keep a whole envelope full of my little scraps just for embellishments and sentiment purposes. And now here's my little trick. So here, because this is small, I put the plate down first. I put the tape on the back side of the cardstock and laid the cardstock over the plate. So this way, when I press the cover plate, the paper sticks and I know I'm going to get right in the middle of that piece of paper. So, lemonade stand, another gorgeous color. Yellow is not my favorite, but this particular tone, I love it. And the cool thing, you know what I noticed, the cool thing about the Better Press is, like, when you're stamping, if you want really rich colors, you have to stamp it twice or 3 times. I do, because that's what I like to do. But for this Better Pressing, I really only had to ink the plates once to get a good, crisp, bright color. And I think that's really cool. I can't wait to use this for more projects. So really easy. There it is. And of course, you know what? Take your little plate, take the plate off, clean the plates. I do, of course, this is an edited video and you don't see me all my cleanups in between all the steps, but I do clean everything before I move on to the next step. So now we're going to work on the leaves. Basically what I'm doing is all the inking and die cutting things ahead of time so I can just assemble the card all at once. And bringing in the stamp wheel, of course. Sometimes, you know, if your stamps don't stick, they might have a little bit of dust or something on the back, so that's just me wiping off my stamps. And another scrap of 110 pound cardstock there. That is going to cut out the leaves. I did 2 leaves for this project. And isn't it great how it looks like they're just going to fit perfectly on that scrap. Isn't that magical? And you're going to see me here. This is where I do my double stamping. So the first leaf, the orange leaf, is stamped in the Amber Blaze. So it has a nice darker outline. And I do love my little pressing tool here. And I noticed with that, honestly, the more even you do it, works better than the more pressure you give it if you're using one of those tools there. So here I am doing a second stamping because I'd like a nice bright outline. And of course, cover your inks or you're going to get your elbow in them. And for the second leaf, you got to, of course, wipe off the orange from this leaf here. And that is going to be the, let's see. Yeah, there we go. Fits in there nice. Well, maybe with a little wiggle room. So I didn't use the teal color for this. I wanted to use a darker blue, but not as dark as that teal on the main panel. So that's why I chose this color blue for the background of this leaf, or the outline of this leaf. And again, nice even pressure all around. Yeah, it took me a while to get used to that little stamping tool, but when I realized that it's not how hard you press, it's how evenly you press on it, that makes all the difference. Like, your hand shouldn't hurt after you use one of those. I honestly don't remember what that's called, but I love it. And believe it or not, on that piece of paper that I stamped, there's still going to be enough room to die cut those out. So no scrap goes unused in my studio. And my habit is, of course, as soon as I'm done with the stamp, I'm going to put that right back into the stamp package because I will lose it. And so now we're going to do the coloring of the leaves. It's a two-color technique. So you see I cut them apart so we can focus on the orange first and then the blue. And just like everything else, just because there's dust and cat hair freely roaming in my studio, I wipe off my brushes before any use. So starting with Pool, which is the lighter color, I'm going to start with the tips of the leaves. Starting very light. Remember, with ink blending, you can always add, but you can't take away. So start light and add more if you need it. But the trick was to just add lighter color ink to the tips of the leaves. Just to give them some highlight, a little bit of definition. Really, really, really easy blending here. And I'm not worried about going over the edge, the lines. Actually, I like that because when I die cut it, that white edge you get from die cutting will have color onto it. So that just kind of helps them blend into the background. So now going in with the darker blue, I'm going to do the inside of the leaves. So that gives us, that's what's going to give us the illusion of some depth. And I'm tapping off because sometimes when you get aggressive, and these inks the fresh dye inks are really juicy. So you want to do a tap off before you apply. I find that works really well. And like I said, you can always add more, but you can't take it away. And I'm just blending until I think I like how it looks. And I'm not worried about the detail because, like, you see these leaves, or maybe they're the flowers, I'm not sure, but they have the little stamens in the middle. And I'm just inking right over those. Those are just going to blend right in. It's more about giving a highlight to where the sentiment's going to go than the real detail of these flower leaves. And now for the orange and yellow. And so Lemonade Stand is a very deep color. So I really want to tap off a lot and really come in with it with a very light hand to make sure that it stays lighter at the tips. It's a very rich color. See, I did not need much of that at all. And I wipe it on my hand. If you're wondering why I do that, because my little spongy thingy there is really wet, and I don't want to put a wet blending tool into my wet ink. So when I wipe off my brushes, I will wipe them out on my hand just to make sure they're nice and dry. It's not super wet, but you don't want extra moisture in there. And then again, with that darker orange, going right into the insides of the leaves for the depth. You always got to tidy up. So let's wipe off this little mess here so we don't get that on the rest of our project. It's a good thing about doing these edited videos. I show you some of my cleanup habits and tips, but there's a lot more that you guys are not seeing. So don't feel bad if you get super messy and take many, many breaks in your project to clean, because we all do it. You just don't see it on these videos. And because I like things kind of automated, I'm going to go and cut out everything that needs to be cut out so that, like I said, once it comes to assembling this card, I can just hit it and quit it. Using my purple tape there. Tip with the purple tape or any tape you're using to hold your dies down. Put the majority of the tape on the discarding piece of cardstock, not onto the inked part of the die cut or the part that you plan on keeping, just in case that tape ends up ripping off that first layer of fibers. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. So put the majority of your piece of tape outside of your die cut area that you don't want any damage to that. And normally I don't mind the white outline from die cutting, but like I said, with this particular look, it was really nice to just have the leaves blend right into that that blended panel. And there we go. Mini Blossom to the rescue. There she is. 2 leaves. Aren't they fun? Nice and colorful. That's a cool thing about this. When you're using complementary colors and they kind of overlap or you're doing projects with them, you only need 2 colors and it just looks, it's like a tone on tone, right? The oranges and the yellows complement the dark blues and the light blues. So you really only have 2 tones, 2 hues, but you have different depths of each one. So you get a lot of color variation just using minimal inks. And now we're cutting out the sentiment. And it is really cool that the Sunshine Greetings press plate comes with die cuts to cut out all the sentiments. I think that is great. I love me a good die cut sentiment. Super easy. All right, now the fun part. I had to add a little subtle sparkle. I like a lot of sparkle, but I thought I would just be subtle with this one since these are the embellishments and the decorations. So this is where I'm going to use the iridescent ink spray. It's just a clear, very, very, very fine clear shimmer mist. That's a test shot. Always give a test shot before you hit your project. And I'm going to use the tweezers to pick these up so that I don't get my finger into them. I do suggest using the tweezers. Next to the stample. The stample is my 3rd hand for crafting, but the tweezers are my 4th hand when it comes to crafting. And just pick them up, set them aside so they can set up. Not that they're really wet or need to dry, but just so they can set up. All right, now we're going to add more detail and depth to that pressed panel we did. And this layering stamp set that corresponds with that press plate comes with 2 layers, but we're only going to use 1. We're only going to use the layer number 1. Make sure that that the number 1 on the stencil is facing up. Then you're going to know that you can line up those leaves really easily. And I'm putting tape back at those same spots where the tape was when I ran it through the press plate, just so I don't, I know that, like I said, the edges are going to get trimmed on this, and I don't want to create new areas to require extra trimming. But it lines up really, really easy. You could use your sticky mats for this. I do have all the sticky mats, but I'm just so old-fashioned. I like using my tape so far. Kind of easing into my sticky mat situation. They didn't have those back when I started crafting, so baby steps. Now, this is the fun part. So, of course, wipe off any fur. Fur happens. I'm going to start with the lemonade stand. And right where the blue and the orange meet is where I'm going to start putting down the lemonade stand color, and starting in the middle and heading up towards the blue, and then at the middle and heading down towards the blue. Getting a good ink blend is all about back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's not just lay down the color and you're done. You can do that. But if you really like those really smooth, even blended tones, it's back and forth, back and forth. So like here, starting with the lightest color, which is the lemonade stand. And just very subtly and softly working that into the blue sections. Now the orange, that is going to go straight up the middle. That's going to give depth to our little ombre look here. And as I put that into the middle, I'm also going to feather that up and down into the yellow that we first applied. So it's always back and forth, back and forth. And I only used one blue to fill in with the stencil because it's a very rich blue, even though it's a light blue. So at the very corners, if I press harder, I get a darker tone, and then I can just stay light where that blue goes into the yellow and orange. Because I wanted to retain that teal outline of the leaves, I didn't want to lose those. So just by changing the pressure on this blue color, I get two tones of blue without losing the definition of the teal blue outline underneath it. And by starting at the corner, I know that it's going to be more highly concentrated there, the color is, and then I can feather it out as you see me doing here. Feather it out down, feather it across, feather it into the middle, just keep working it around. And again, we're going to do the big reveal, bringing in all my parts. Bringing in my parts. Ready for the reveal. Love the reveal. There it is. There is our blended background, a nice summery colored leaves. Now, I am using the brushed gold metallic cardstock, and normally when I do layers on a card, I use my liquid glue. However, I don't want to get any ooking out around the edges of the glue onto my metallic cardstock. So when I use metallic cardstock in a project, I will use anything else for an adhesive other than liquid glue. So here I'm using double-sided sticky tape. Just be careful. If you don't press things down firmly, you do have a little bit of room to move things around. If eyeballing is a problem for you, because with tape or a tape runner, obviously once you set it, you can't pick it back up. Now here's where we're going to trim down that panel. I'm going to trim 1/4 inch off of every edge because I want a nice white border from the card base. Then I want the gold border, and then we have our nice pretty blended panel. And you see after every edge that I trim, even though I know what I'm doing, that I want 1/4 inch off of every side, I do a dry fit after every cut, just because there'll be that one time where I don't do a dry fit and I end up cutting off too much. So I just always like to dry fit everything before I call it official. And again, there we go. We got our nice border showing. I love it. Again, I'm going to use the double-sided tape because I don't want any ooking out on that nice, pretty, shiny brushed gold cardstock. Tweezers come in super handy again to take those little bits of paper off the double-sided tape. And I'm just going to eyeball it and stick it down. I thought the gold stayed with the hue that I was going with. But again, just gives it a nice little shine, a nice pop, a little air of sophistication. Now we can bring in our embellishments. I am going to use liquid glue for these because I am just gluing them down. And of course our sentiments coming in. This is a very, yes, regardless that this has been an edited video just to edit out all my little things, this still is a very simple project, very simple techniques, very forgiving. If you struggle with ink blending, my pro tip for you is keep it simple. Just pick 2 colors, maybe even 1, and practice with that because you can always apply more pressure to get a darker tone or less pressure to get a lighter tone, and you really can do a lot with just a couple colors. That's just a good thing to practice. The sentiment, I'm going to put it on little foam dots, which is, of course, double-sided tape, but in little squares. And it's nice, the sentiment was wide enough so I didn't have to cut any of these little squares in half because, you know, that's always kind of annoying when you got to cut the adhesive, tiny little adhesive square in half for your sentiment. So this was a nice little generous size sentiment here. And I like clusters. I like clustering my sentiments with my embellishments. Like you could put the sentiment anywhere on the card you wanted, really. I just like to cluster everything together. I think it gives it a good composition. Now, of course, it's time for the sparkles. These gem sparkles are 3D. They're raised. They're probably about 1/8 of an inch tall, and they're faceted, and they are so pretty. I normally don't add embellishments of this type, little sparkles and things, only because I'm afraid they're going to fall off in the mail or something, but I love these ones. I love these black onyx gems. Of course, going with the rule of 3s here. There we go. Yes, gotta have a finishing touch, a little bit of drama. And there you are. There's our original, and then the other one that we made just now, you can see it goes in a different orientation of inking, but they're both super cool and pretty, and I like them, and I hope you guys did too. If you did, give this a thumbs up. Give this video a thumbs up, of course. Subscribe, share, and follow along on the blog hop. And thank you for joining me today. Good luck, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.